the ride. Trying to be the controller of the ride, and we're not. But this Hari Katha, this transit yields, it brings about the attainment of transcendental knowledge. The effect of that, it causes detachment from all mundane topics. I added a slide to what you sent me. The Buddha. I added a slide where I just whited out where it says attachment and put desire. The root of all suffering. There's a something on the website apparently that says it. Lord Buddha said, root of all suffering is attachment. But attachment, preceding attachment is a desire. You have to have a desire to be attached to something. So at the root is desire. Then his point of view is commit suicide. I mean, he doesn't say commit suicide, but it's become desireless. But what's desireless? You stop to exist. Because existence means there's desire. And with the desire, there's attachment to the desire and the object of the desire. So you just like nirvana, cessation of material existence. But it doesn't equal spiritual existence. Prabhupada gives a very simple example. Just listening to him this morning saying, I'm sitting in this room, and if you ask me, please leave the room, I'll have to go somewhere. It's really simple. I can't leave the room unless I go somewhere, right? So then there's another room. So to become, there's no such thing as desireless. There's no such thing. That means going out of existence, but I exist. They can't go out of existence. There's no such thing. And being absolutely desireless. You can anesthetize desire. You can try to control desire and make it less noisy, more quiet, more peaceful, shanti, shanti. And then you want activity. Activity means it's a manifestation of a desire. Whether it can be desire for liberation or desire to stop desire. It's a desire. How do you stop desire? You can't. You know, it's not, there's no such thing. There's no such thing. So it's purify. And purify means connect that desire. That's what the final part of this purport is. Connect the desire, even if it's in this material field, connect that desire to the Supreme. Like exactly the question yesterday about stopping activity. It's not about stopping activity. It's offering the fruits of your, fruits of your work to Krishna. And that's preliminary. Nishkam karma. Or karma pala tyag. At the end, just reading, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Nishkam karma is another way of saying pure devotion. It's a subset of pure devotion. Because pure devotion, listen carefully, pure devotion means everything for Krishna. If it's nishkam karma, because you're going to be active, there's going to be fruits of your activity. If there's no desire, nishkam, karma, what do you do with the pala? Goes to Krishna. So it's a subset of everything for Krishna. So you can say it negative or you can say it positive. And the positive is, in the mature stage of the positive is, Krishna is everything. Including the death of my son. If the ecstasy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is at stake, that's everything. Now Lord Chaitanya expressed his displeasure. Why did you say anything? Didn't want to interrupt your ecstasy. It was an opportunity for Lord Chaitanya to revive the son, placing his hand on his chest. Where have you left Srivas Thakur? Look at him, he's feeling great separation from you. The boy sat up. You sent me somewhere. My time in this body was over, and I have some other service for you somewhere else. That's why I left. I'm completely dependent upon your engaging me in service. So I'm going now. He laid back down again. And the commentary says, or no, the verse says, in this way Lord Chaitanya was giving transcendental knowledge to everyone. Like pretty startling. The whole thing must have been really emotionally wrenching. And the boy comes back to life and said, I'm in your service eternally. You sent me somewhere. Here I go. Now, we don't normally think of death like that. But we should think of death like that. Especially someone who's a great soul. Now, some of you may know. If you don't, in 2 minutes you'll know. Kadamba Kanada Swami, very wonderful Vaishnav, recently received a medical report. He took a while to craft the letter because he didn't want to shock everybody, but he's been diagnosed as having a type of terminal cancer that's incurable. So he can't take any kind of treatment or anything. It's incurable, and the doctors said that you have at most 1 year, maybe less, maybe more, but at most 1 year. So he's preparing for death. And, it's very sad. He's a wonderful Vaishnava, etc., etc. Wonderful kirtan. Some people know him for different things. I served with him twice. For a period of time, he was in Vrindavan. For a period of time before he was in Vrindavan, he took full responsibility. He was the in charge for establishing Prabhupada's Samadhi, Pushpa Samadhi in Mayapur. He oversaw the construction. You want to oversee a construction in Mayapur? Good luck. He had a lot of practical savvy. And as soon as he was done, the next service he took was being president of ISKCON Vrindavan. You want a hot seat? Be the president of ISKCON Vrindavan. That's a really hot seat. And the person who was his right-hand man, he sent him to Jaipur to establish a temple in Jaipur because there was no temple. And that person today is the temple president in Jaipur. He got shot. Kadamba Kanada Swami got shot with a bullet in Vrindavan. Somebody didn't like him. So he left that service. And did many other nice things. One of the ways that my service intersected with his, without some other detail, there was a group of devotees that were spending about 3 or 4 years trying to figure out a strategic plan for Mayapur because there was all this land, and there was an idea, without saying too much about it, but there was an idea of how to lift the Bengal state's restriction on a not-for-profit organization could only own a certain number of acres of agricultural land, and all of Mayapur is agricultural land. There's a lot of history, two and a half decades of history of the government doing whatever they locked it up. They can't, so a plan was figured out how to release that lock without the detail. And what's the master plan for the city that Prabhupada wanted? In, around, and around, and around. And Kadamba Kanada Swami volunteered or was drawn into that project. And within about half a year, he had a plan. And everyone was like, wow, that was really a good plan. How'd you do it? Anyway, he's a very talented person. So once the master plan was in place, he went on to some other service without details. He's a very gifted person, and he's not going to be with us for too much longer. So, who in this room is going to last forever? And what's our plan? What's our plan? I mean, there's some senior citizens in the room along with me, and we're not going to be around here forever. So what's our plan? And then people that are, downstairs playing, they're going to be around for longer than we are, most likely. But what's the plan? Without going into it too much. So much preparation for study, to get the degree, to get the job, to get the house, to get the wife, to get the family, to raise the children, we so much time and so much energy spent in all those temporary things, and they're all knowing it's all temporary. It's all temporary. It's all temporary. Where's the investment in the eternal? Well, here it is. Right here. It's right in the purport. It's right in the purport. For a devotee, all mundane activities, social and political, become unattractive, and in the mature stage, such a devotee becomes uninterested even in his own body, what to speak of bodily relatives. Pooh. Not exactly. This doesn't mean you spit on it. It means it's not your all in all. It has its place in the world of temporary, just like maintaining the activity, eating and sleeping, no mating, defending, no mating for sannyasis anyways, and making arrangements for protection. This state of affairs is described herein as prati nivrita gunormi. Nivrita gunormi, the cessation of the waves of the modes of nature. And it is possible by Atma Prasad, or complete self-satisfaction without any material connection. Now we have material connections. We have a nice house, and it's air conditioning. Good thing it's air conditioning. It's pretty hot out there. It's more mild today, but there was a heat wave that went through, and it was really hot. When I reached the airport in Chicago, it was 99 degrees. I texted a couple people that said, it's 91 in Atlanta, 99 degrees in Chicago. Because that's where I came from. I said, it's coming, the heat wave is coming your way. So we make adjustments for the temporary, but it's not the standard of happiness, and without which we suffer. This morning, Prabhupada was saying, he was speaking in the 22nd Avenue in August 1968. August in New York was apparently hot. So he said, supposing there's some people here in the room, some people have come from very wealthy families. Some people come from middle-class families, but the heat is the same. You have a material body, whether it's a high-grade one or a medium-grade one or the lower-grade one. The miseries are the same. And it's not, so that's not what the standard of happiness is. You reduce the miseries. Those that have Atma Prasad realize that. And therefore the waves of the gunormi, the waves of the modes of material nature, nivrita. The heat doesn't stop, or the cold doesn't stop. The inconvenience doesn't stop, but your consciousness is very, very, very much adjusted. That's not what happiness is. You do basic stuff, but that's not happiness if you can't do the basic stuff, or can do it. The first-class devotee of the Lord attains this stage by devotional service, but despite his loftiness, for the Lord's satisfaction, he may play the voluntary part of a preacher, Prabhupada speaking of himself, of the Lord's glory, and dovetail all into devotional service, even mundane interest, just to give the neophytes a chance to transform mundane interest into transcendental bliss. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe. So there's Prabhupada was so gifted. I wasn't present for this, but I was told, I remember Satsrup Maharaj telling, from time to time Prabhupada would like to just sit and hear his Krishna book or Bhaktivedanta purports, and he would just sit and hear for a long time, silent, as busy as he was. And then he would say, Krishna has written these books. I have not written these books. And the person reading the books was, I'm sure it impacted them. And if we can understand that fact, it can impact us too. It's Krishna speaking. Of course, Krishna speaking, Bhagavad Gita, it's Krishna speaking. And then the Bhaktivedanta purports is Krishna speaking. I'll tell a little Prabhupada story and then we're going to end and see if there's some discussion. So get ready for your questions, right? Mayapur, before the Gaur Purnima festival, Prabhupada's speaking on the Vyasasan, maybe a few hundred devotees in the audience. You know, cool morning. The mornings in Mayapur at that time are reasonably cool. Prabhupada would come downstairs and greet the deities. And after obeisances before each of the altars, there would be a procession with kirtan, and Prabhupada would circumambulate the deities 3 times. And one of the joyful things, there were 2 bells hanging from the ceiling with long rope, and Prabhupada, they made a rope that could ring the bell. Prabhupada was short, but he could reach the bell, and he would stop, and he would go like this with the rope, and the bell would sound. It was a really big bell, really loud sound, and the devotees would dance and dance and dance. And Prabhupada would look around and smile, then go around to the other corner and grab the rope and ring the bell. That was one of the favorite things, 3 times around. It was really nice. Maybe you've seen videos of it. It was really nice to be there with Prabhupada like that. And then he went to the Vyasasan and sat on the Vyasasan and the Guru Puja, then giving class. And this particular year, he was lecturing on each of the early verses of Adi Leela, one by one. And I don't remember which one it was that he was speaking on, but I do remember what happened. He was speaking on this particular point, which made me think of it. He said, some people say, oh, I will not be so fortunate like Arjuna, because Arjuna was able to hear Krishna speak directly, but I'll never get the chance to hear Krishna speak directly, so I'll never have the good fortune that Arjuna had. I don't know if you've heard people say that. I've heard people say that. Apparently Prabhupada heard it. And he said, no. Because when Krishna says, surrender unto me. And the representative of Krishna says, surrender unto Krishna. It is Krishna speaking. He paused, got a little emotional, and said it again. When the pure devotee says, surrender unto Krishna, Krishna says, surrender unto me, it's Krishna speaking. Then he said it again. And he paused and got a little emotional, got about 2 or 3 words further and stopped, and went into trance, right on the Vyasa-san. I mean, the normal muscles of his face kind of slackened. His eyes closed, his face kind of drooped, and his body started swaying like some plant or something in the wind. His body was moving like this. And we're all like, Hansaduta stood up, picked up Mridanga and stood up, and started chanting Hare Krishna very softly. And I don't remember how long, maybe it was 2 mantras, 2 full mantras. Prabhupada opened up his eyes, looked around the room, got off the Vyasa-san and went back upstairs. That was it, the end of class. And how I assimilated what happened is he was so absorbed in the message that he said 3 times. He was experiencing Krishna speaking through him as the instrument. It was Krishna speaking. Just by repeating Krishna's words. So notionally, it's Krishna speaking. And experientially, for Prabhupada, he was just an instrument, and it was Krishna speaking. And when he's presenting these Bhaktivedanta purports, it's Krishna speaking. So our realization isn't that. But the opportunity is our opportunity. And depends, so how oriented our heart is to that sound vibration and how we're able to receive it for what it really is. And supposing we're not so able to receive it the way that it really is, there's purification nonetheless. And then in stages, as he described twice in the purport, and just reflecting what's in the verse. And in the conclusion of the verse, who would fail to be attracted? Well, that's coming up. Who's failed to be attracted? Due to events, we're failed to be attracted. But it doesn't reduce the potency, even if we're not attracted. Let's see if there's some discussion. Nirantra.
Everyone can see my eyes.
The teenagers can stay in hiding, it's okay.
To mention something about some of us in this right here in this. Hare Krishna.
There you go.
You mentioned it remind me more about it, but you mentioned it about even some of us right here, in the sense that believe in or do not know how things are happening. That's a comment. But my question is, some of us right here in this audience have some ideas about, in the sense that we are not this body, but in some deep transcendental knowledge, we know where we are going to.
How do we know where we're going to, is your question?
I say some of us in this audience may have some transcendental ideas to knowing where we will end up when this body is not present in this planet.
Well, good. Congratulations to such special people. Yes.
I have a question and Shrilika has a question, but ladies.
Let's do her question because
Ladies
she
go
probably, I may not understand it. She may want to clarify it.
So she writes, my understanding is that typically Srila Prabhupada uses the word dovetail to describe activities that we have a desire to do. And we do them in a way that is conducive to our relationship with Krishna. By the purificatory power of that devotional dovetailing, the material portion of that desire wanes. However, the last sentence of the purport reads, even mundane activities dovetailed with service to the Lord are also calculated to be transcendental or approved Kaivalya affairs. End quote. So my question is, why is Srila Prabhupada describing this dovetailing as Kaivalya?
Why not? Supposing I'm on my way to the temple and somebody calls your home because we just had a home program, and when you pick up the phone, they say they'd like to speak to Maharaj. They'd like to speak to Maharaj. They said, oh, too late, he's gone to the temple. But I'm in the car on the way to the temple. I didn't get there yet. But it's correct to say he's gone to the temple. In the same way, Kaivalya. It's exactly what's said. It's also by authorities. It's like sadhana bhakti is part of bhakti. But bhakti is anyabhilasha shunyam jnana karmadhyanavatam anukulyena krishna anushilanam bhaktir uttama. Uttama bhakti includes sadhana bhakti. So Kaivalya is dovetailing. Why not? Next.
She has no rebuttal, so hopefully she worked out. My question is related to the last line of the verse where it says, who will not be attracted? And then it's coming up in the following verses where it says, you
Yes.
commented that one who is offensive cannot be attractive. And then I was thinking about the exchange with Devananda Pandit last night.
Yeah.
And what was charming about that incident is the fact that even though he was offensive, not directly, but indirectly offensive, that he was attracted to Vakreshwar Pandit's
Yes.
dancing and speaking on Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes.
So what was it about him,
What was it about? Who was him?
Devananda Pandit,
Okay.
that he was able to, or he got he got mercy despite having the offensive attitude. He was attracted despite being offensive.
There could be a number of factors, but certainly one of those factors is the exaltedness of Vakreshwar Pandit. Light can shine through a cloud and dissipate the cloud, or light can dissipate fog, and then it's a clear sky by the power of the light of the sun that dissipates the fog. You know the verse from 6th canto, chapter 1 of the Bhagavatam, where it says specifically, the holy name has such power, like the rising of the sun in the morning, it dissipates fog at once. So, because of the potency, the power, the Shakti, the pure devotion representing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu carried in the person of a Krsna Pandit. Let's take the example of our founder Acharya. He interacted with some people without, you can name some of the names, but there's no need, where people would say things that were contradictory or offensive, even to Prabhupada. And, by his purity, by his potency, they became transformed. So one might say, well, there may have been, or there must have been something, although he had made an offense to Srivas Pandit, there was something within him, that there was some innate attraction that was brought out by the association with a Krsna Pandit. So a combination of the two. Within Devananda and within Krsna Pandit, in the combination of the two. So, try to find a pure devotee, associate with a pure devotee, knowing that we have made unintentional mistakes and unintentional offenses. But that can be cured. That's, Madhurya Kandamani. It can be cured by the power of bhakti. It takes time, but it can be cured by the power of bhakti. Bhakti had awakened. Something else? Okay. Others?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is, everything is coming from the Krishna, like
The two speaking before you were showing by example. You hold the microphone like this. Lots of people hold the microphone in a way that makes it hard to hear. Hold it like an ice cream.
Okay.
There you go.
Thanks. So, Maharaj, everything is coming from the Krishna, even that working, what is your capacity is coming from Krishna, result is also coming from the Krishna. So I want to understand what is the mean of, the offering the fruits. You do your work and offer the fruits to Krishna. If everything is coming, work, whether you are potency of work, a result is also coming. So what is mean of offering the fruits to Krishna?
There's gradations. Which one do you want? You want the 101 or 102 or 201 or 202 or 301 or in the highest stage of bhakti is everything. And 101 can be, it's very simple. Some of your paycheck comes and some of that goes to the Vaishnavas and to the Brahmanas or to the temple or to Krishna directly in some form or fashion.
Okay.
That's offering the results. That's that's like entry level.
Okay.
And one may, and in the entry level, one may do that because I think I'm going to get something. I'll get some punya points by doing that. And so, it's an investment. I'll give X and I'll get back 3X. So there's gradations of what it means and what it looks like.
Thank you, Maharaj. So one more question, Maharaj. So
Maybe just a little story. There was a gentleman who came to the Brooklyn Temple every day at the same time, right in the middle of the Bhagavatam class. And he was a Kanishta. And how do I say that? He was oblivious to the fact that there was a Bhagavatam class going on. He walked right through the middle of the audience as if they didn't even exist. He had a plastic bag in which he brought some offerings to the deity, rustled the plastic bag, like really noisy, took whatever it was because he wanted to save the plastic bag. So he put whatever it was he came to offer, some grains or something, and then, aloud, while the class is going on, offered some prayers, standing there, turned around 3 times, went over and rattled the Charnamrita bowl and took Charnamrita and walked right through the middle of the class every morning. Offering the fruits to Krishna.
Yeah.
He was very religious. Religious. I mean, every day. 7 days of the week. Not just 5 days. 7 days. Very fixed. Somebody one day kindly, when he left the temple room, took him outside and advised him, please be respectful of the Bhagavatam class. He got upset. He continued to come. He didn't stop. He continued to do his program. So we just let him go. So that's the beginning. Offering the fruits to Krishna.
One more question, Maharaj. So, what is the fanaticism in the bhakti?
What's the which?
Fanatics in the bhakti.
Fanaticism?
Yes.
What you want to know? What does a fanatic look like?
Yes, Maharaj.
Well, there's the gradations. You want 101 or 102. It's 101 could be, it's my way or the highway.
Okay.
And it's a kind of tendency for a neophyte when they found something that they look down their nose at anything other than that something. And a kind of protection for the other sense of security, I found something. Anything other that doesn't look exactly like this something, it's, not worthy.
Okay.
Here's another one, another example of fanaticism. It's called, there's a Sanskrit term for it, utsaha mayi. Utsaha means enthusiasm. Mayi means false enthusiasm. So in the beginning, this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that in the beginning, one may be over-enthusiastic, utsaha mayi, and it's a kind of fanaticism. And explaining this, I heard Bhakti Chaitanya Swami explaining that particular section of Madhurya Kandambani, and he gave a really nice example. One time at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, where he was serving for some time, George Harrison came to visit the manor, which he had donated. So when he came in a big limousine, and because it's London, it had rained. So when Brahmachari came, saw him coming, and prostrated himself full dandavats in the middle of a mud puddle on the road, on the driveway. And he stood up, and his dhoti was dripping mud. And George said, "You didn't have to do that." That's 101. Then it can become more extreme. You can't see the essence, you can only see the form. And everything has to be according to that form, and anything that looks like that form, it's wrong. It's insubstantial. So not seeing substance and seeing form.
Thank you, Maharaj.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Others? Our host here, he wants to say something.
Thank you, Maharaj. I was wondering, you had mentioned about attachment to one's body and to one's relatives. And we're very attached to wanting to stay with our relatives for eternity. Is making our relatives, our family members into devotees a way to stay with them for eternity? How does it change when they become devotees?
How does it change when?
They become devotees, when relatives become devotees.
Well, The relationship may be eternal, but our consciousness may not be. We may still be attached to the bodily conception of the relative. But you can't transform temporary into eternal. The eternal is eternal, and if you or any one of us can assist a family member, I know some devotees here are trying to assist family members to become devotees, then you get some Krishna points for that. Krishna is pleased when you are trying, I want to speak of if that actually happens, but Krishna is pleased by that effort. And it's Krishna's pleasure that makes that connection eternal. Because there's so many souls, and one can be concerned about so many souls, but not necessarily have a spiritual conception of, because that spiritual conception is in relation to Krishna. So it's not that no, your wife and children are going to be your wife and children in the spiritual world. So that would be a misconception. I didn't attend this, but some devotees did in Boston. For some time I was serving in Boston. And they went to, I think it's, I forget which group. A Christian group had a high-tech 3D theater where they were teaching their teachings. And they told me what the experience was. It's a family, they're sitting around the dining room table and they're having dinner, and they decide, let's go for a ride. And they get in the car and they're driving along the highway, and there's a crash. And the crash ends up, they're all dead. The car crash, big noise, then this like kind of angelic music. The screen goes blank. Then the screen starts to come on, and now they're in heaven. And they're at the dining room table, and there's mom, and there's dad, and there's Fido under the table, and there they are in heaven. You become part of this religion, and that's what's waiting you. You go to heaven with the same family members, and it's without the no taxes. That's not the way it is. But the satisfaction of Krishna is that's what we can rely on as being eternal. And that Krishna is pleased, that's permanent. Service rendered is permanent, whatever it may look like.
Just a follow up to that. So, like the devotees that we serve with, is there a spiritual relationship that may continue in the spiritual world?
Yes,
or no?
yes. What it will look like, we cannot say. That's up to Krishna to decide. We cannot say.
Guru Maharaj, I'm still thinking about that Srivas Thakur's son's pastime. Thank you so much for bringing up and connecting to that. You mentioned in the beginning of the class there is no real unhappiness in the transcendental realm. That's gradually sinking in. As a follow-up to that, I get caught up sometimes, particularly when there is a death of a devotee, seemingly untimely, Bhakti Charu Maharaj and Pankajangri Prabhu, it was quite disturbing. So I just got this realization as you're speaking that I don't know the reason, in the sense as if Krishna has to reveal to me why it happened and where they're going to go. So when Srivas Thakur's son got up and spoke, it was transcendental knowledge, and probably it would have brought some kind of closure to them, the family. I mean, I know we may not understand Krishna's reasons always, but just would like to hear from you in those kind of seemingly unsettling circumstances, how can I still continue on that Krishna is kind?
How can you still continue what?
On the message that Krishna is kind.
How can you stay faithful to the fact that Krishna is kind? That's your question. We'll step back and consider Bhagavad Gita's message. Krishna is very clear that the problems of our life are these four. Death is one. Everything in this world is limited and temporary, and the soul is eternal. Now, whether some event happens where in fact it's true or not, it's true. So that's the higher reality is, it's true. Everything material is limited and temporary, and it goes through different transformations because it's limited and temporary. So when it happens, it doesn't take away that Krishna is kind. He would only be kind if he makes that which is temporary to be eternal. That would be the sign of his kindness. That's you know, if your toe stubs that block and it hurts, you know, be more careful when you walk. Temporary is temporary. Limited is limited. And if you expect temporary and limited to be not temporary and limited, that expectation is going to leave you feeling something. So match your expectations with reality. Now, what was the intention? Is another question. Where did Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj go? Where did Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj go? Where did Tamal Krishna Maharaj go? Where all souls that are elevated, wonderful, exemplary servants of our founder Acharya, etc., where do they go? They're engaged in service. If Krishna wants, just like that son of Srivas said, he had some service, and you sent me on to do some service, so I'm going to go do that service. This is your will. I'm dependent upon you. If you want it to be other than that, you'll be disappointed. You'll feel Krishna isn't kind. Of this world, everything is limited and temporary. That's reality. This is the fourth time we discussed this. It's okay. Okay, one more question, and we're going to, I see two in the back, and then that's it, in the back. Right behind you. Yes. Give it to a teenager, they'll know how to do it.
No?
Oh, there we go.
Hold it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj, for this wonderful class and for all these classes that you've been giving. I've not been able to come in person many times, but I've just been, yesterday I was discussing with Sri Balaprabhu, I mean, how does Maharaj do this day after day after day, and not sometimes one class, sometimes two, and like yesterday there were 3 classes. So yes, we're reading about personalities from the scriptures, Maharaj, but I'd like to know about you. I mean, you know, how do you do this? It is yeah. So please.
How does the plant grow? Give it to, over here to Mataji. It's life. It suits me. I couldn't do what you do. You can't do what I do. And it suits you. And this suits me. No, this is Sri Radhika's, it's a dovetail. It's life. It gives me life. There are other things I like to do. but I'm too busy doing these things I like to do those things I also would like to do. You know, I spent, in addition to chanting japa this morning, I spent several hours planning the next and the next and the next. So come for the japa retreat or the festival of the holy name. And then after that is going to be another one, and after that is another one, and after that is another one, and after that is another one. I sent to your daughter, one of your daughters, the rendering of Manashiksha with, when she does her narration, they put it into Chinese. So that they can read this, I don't know how, they can read the Devanagari. So Mukunda's singing stays the same. So it's the movie, they write on the movie, when she's narrating, the Chinese words also appear, along with the words that she's narrating. So I sent it to her and said, tomorrow morning I'm starting that one. And for China, it's probably going to take a month because it's, an hour and a half. For, each week for Monday evening, their time, Monday morning, our time. So there's a little recycling going on. But that means I get a chance to relish the topic again, and relish the topic again, and relish the topic again. And it nourishes my soul. So it suits me. It gives me energy, it gives me life. That's how I do it. And each day is another adventure.
Maharaj, her question's answer may be right in this pulpit. Her question's answer may be right in this pulpit that you read today. How you took us so nicely through the Lord's Swarup Shakti, the Samved Sandhani and Ladini Shakti, and it was very, very deep and very nice. In other words, a devotee, I was thinking that how the devotee reads this and sees these symptoms happening to one's life, but it's also like how Krishna does it for you. In other words,
Krishna does what?
He does it for you. He gives.
He does it for you.
Yeah, because how even for a new devotee, just yesterday when Mataji was asking me how she's just starting Krishna consciousness, and her husband is already feeling like she's going to leave him. She's going to leave him because she's getting internally detached. It's very hard to enjoy the same things once you get into Krishna consciousness. And those symptoms come so quickly, but then, so she's feeling a little like troubled by that. And because she's still not ready to give up, she's not in the platform of Ladini, the Ananda part, so she has to deal with that. So I was thinking how Krishna gives suffering 101 right from day one, It's like, as soon as you enter Krishna consciousness, it's like Krishna just gives it to you, in other words, he shows it to you, and you have to struggle through it,
Well, everyone's experience is unique. Some people have a different ride. But in all circumstances, Krishna is kind. It's a customized kindness. Okay? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.